Yo, this your boy Warbull. Due to the YouTube game, I got another reaction for y'all today. And we're gonna react to FBI confirmed the Zodiac killer Cypher has been cracked. So let's get to it.
Two high school students named Betty Lou Jensen and David Faraday are making out in a car on a dark road nicknamed Lover's Lane. Suddenly, a man appears out of nowhere and orders the love-struck teens to get out of the vehicle. Faraday gets out first, at which point he's shot and killed. Jensen makes a run for it and is shot 5 times in the back. This was the work of the Zodiac, perhaps America's most mysterious killer, a maniac still in the crosshairs of law enforcement today, and a man that just spoke again after half a decade of silence. Around 6 months after that murder, 3 newspapers received a letter, each from a person who claimed he was the killer. In the letters, the person included a cryptogram that, after being cracked, seemed to reference a book about hunting. But not about animal hunting, it was about hunting humans for sport. His victims, he wrote, would become his slave in the afterlife. This is the Zodiac speaking, would become 5 words that etched themselves into the minds of millions of Americans after more brutal murders and bewildering letters. The killer was playing with the cops. He was needling them, trolling them, so much so that he drove some investigators nearly out of their minds.
You know what kind of killer you got to be to drive detectives out of their mind?
And then came the unsolvable puzzle, the Zodiac's pièce de résistance, a cipher so perplexing that not even the greatest code-breaking minds in the world could solve it. Until now, anyway. It's taken 51 years to finally solve the puzzle, and it's revealed a chilling message. Okay, so first you need to know a bit more about the person known as the Zodiac Killer. It's something we've covered in detail before, so we'll give you an abridged version of this rather long and very disturbing tale. Spoiler alert, the cops never caught him. Should they have? You can tell us at the end. It's possible he started this journey as a ruthless killer with those 2 young lovers, but it's also possible the Zodiac had actually killed before. We may never know for sure, but in a letter he...
Most killers have killed before the police even come across them. Well, serious killers anyhow.
Once claimed to have killed as many as 37 people. The police, though, have only ever definitively linked him to the killing of 5 people. In all likelihood, the Zodiac's body count was way higher, and he might have carried on killing for decades. His last letter came in 1974, and then, like a ghost, he just disappeared. That letter contained a postmark saying, "If I don't see this note in your paper, I'll do something nasty, which you know I'm capable of." He then wrote me 37 SFPD 0. Such...
Do you really put a threat out there? I mean, that's crazy. The dude threat, I'm pretty sure they did because they know this dude's capable of it.
Letters infuriated the police, especially when he wrote things such as, "I like killing people because it's so much fun." For the cops, it was only a matter of time before they caught the maniac, but they were wrong, very wrong. It's certain the Zodiac murdered 22-year-old Darlene Elizabeth Farron and almost killed 19-year-old Mike Renault Mageau as they sat in their car in a secluded section of Blue Rock Springs Park in Vallejo, California. The killer pulled up behind them at one point and then drove away. When he returned, he got out of his car and shined a bright light into the couple's car. He shot Farron 5 times and Mageau 4 times. She died, but he lived to tell the tale. Cops now knew they were looking for a male, possibly in his late 20s, early 30s. He was about 5'8", and on the stocky side, he had brown hair and a roundish face. Mageau might have gotten some details wrong, but who takes notes when you have a gun in your face? How did the police know it was the Zodiac Killer? Well, he had the gumption to call them from a payphone only a few blocks away from the station, less than an hour after the attack. He told them details about the murder only the killer could possibly know, like what weapon was used.
Do you know what kind of cojones you have to call the police, let them know you killed somebody just a couple blocks away from them?
And then he shocked the cops by saying he was also the one who killed the kids on Lover's Lane. So if it wasn't a one-off killer, it was the work of a serial killer. Since the woman was cheating on her husband, he was a suspect for a while, but it didn't take long to figure out it wasn't him. The Zodiac was real. He was far from finished. So now we need to talk about ciphers and cryptograms. It's like a puzzle that contains encrypted symbols. Might look like gibberish, but it has a hidden meaning. To figure out that meaning, you need a kind of key to decode it called a cipher. Anyone can create one with a little bit of research, and if you're the clever sort, you can even create a cryptogram that's next to impossible to decipher. Seeing as it took 51 years to crack one of the Zodiac's puzzles, well, you say criticize him all you want for his brutality, but you can't underestimate the man's brain power. His first cryptogram was the 408, which is called that because that's how many total symbols are in it. It was published by the San
What?
Francisco Chronicle and 2 other newspapers that were each sent different parts of the puzzle, and the public was asked to solve it. A couple of teachers in California named Donald Jean and Betty June Hardin did just that, and it only took them 20 hours. Strange, since the so-called experts had failed where they succeeded. There's actually a conspiracy theory that the 2 were the Zodiac, but that's
interesting. The Zodiac killer is not just one person. That's interesting.
story for another day. So in all, this cryptogram contained 54 different cipher symbols and 25 letters that are in the English alphabet. The couple worked out that they were looking at what's called a homophonic substitution cipher, which basically means you replace one letter with another, say a D for an M. It gets tricky though when one letter can be replaced by 5 different letters. The couple cracked it though, and this is how the decoded message began. I like killing people because it's so much fun. It's more fun than killing wild game in the forest because man is the most dangerous animal of all. To kill something gives me the most thrilling experience. It's even better than getting your rocks off with a girl. He then goes on about slaves in the afterlife and paradise, so despite being very clever, the Zodiac may also be suffering from mental illnesses, and he wasn't finished killing. Just over a month later, he struck again. This time he picked on 2 Pacific Union College students named Brian Hartnell and Cecilia Shepard. They were enjoying a picnic at a
He likes going after young people.
bucolic spot next to Lake Berryessa in California's beautiful Napa Valley. The pair might have received the shock of their lives when they saw a man that looked like a vision from hell walking toward their very secluded spot. It was a man about 5'11", average weight, wearing what looked like an executioner's hood. They couldn't see his eyes though, due to the fact that he was wearing sunglasses over the mask's eye holes. If that wasn't frightening enough, he was also wearing what looked like a child's bib. On that bib was his now famous crossed circle symbol. The couple were absolutely petrified but didn't move since the maniac approaching them was clasping a handgun. He told them not to worry and told them a story about being a convict on the run. He subsequently told the young man to tie up his girlfriend with plastic clothesline that the supposed convict just happened to have handy. The Zodiac then tied up the man himself. What happened next is usually what only happens in horror movies featuring college students that drive out to the woods or a lake, even though they're warned not to do so by a peculiar-looking gas station owner. The Zodiac started going crazy, stabbing them both in the back. He stabbed the man 6 times and the woman 10 times. Leaving them for dead, the Zodiac walked about 500 yards to where the couple's car was parked, and there he drew his symbol on the door and wrote Vallejo 12/20/68, 7/4/69, September 27/69, 6:30 by knife. That evening, the Zodiac got the Napa Police Department on the phone and told them that he really was behind the double murder at the lake. The cops later discovered he'd made that call from a Napa car wash that was just around the corner from their department. The cops got a lead from this though because they managed to get some prints from the phone. Not only that, the kids he stabbed weren't dead. They were discovered inches from death, having lost a ton of blood. The girl told the cops what she'd seen, but not long after she fell into a coma and died in the hospital 2 days later. The man survived though and told the cops everything he knew. The police also had other clues, such as tire tracks most likely from the killer's car and his size 10.5 wing walker boot prints. Now cops knew they were looking for a true American psycho. Soon after, the Zodiac struck again, this time murdering a taxi driver named Paul Stein with a bullet to the back of the head. 3 days later, the San Francisco Chronicle received a letter from the Zodiac containing a piece of Stein's shirt. There was no doubt that it was the real deal. The Zodiac...
Wait a minute. Tire tracks, foot size, witnesses, and he's still not caught?
said in the letter that the cops could have caught him if they'd been doing their job correctly. He also wrote, "School children make nice targets. I think I shall wipe out a school bus some morning. Just shoot the front tire and then pick off the kiddies as they come bouncing out." Just over a week later, someone claiming to be the Zodiac called the Oakland Police Department. The person demanded that either one of the two big shot lawyers, F. Lee Bailey or Melvin Belly, go to a popular local talk show hosted by a man named Jim Dunbar. Belly did just that and appealed for the killer to call in. A man who said he was the Zodiac did call. He said, "I need help. I'm sick. I don't want to go to the gas chamber." And he even said he'd meet with Belly, but in the end he didn't turn up. As you'll soon find out, there was likely more to that call than first meets the eye. This finally brings us to that unbreakable puzzle. Not long after that no-show with the lawyer, the Chronicle received a new communication from the Zodiac. This time, it was a cryptogram containing 340 characters, which came to be known as Cypher 340, and it proved to be too difficult for the best minds in the world to decipher at the time. People tried for decades from the USA and across the world, but what the Zodiac Killer had created was something special, something so annoyingly difficult that after years of trying and failing, the puzzle was forgotten by most code crackers. Maybe it was meaningless, they thought, an assumption that put their frustrated minds at ease. But then in 2006, a global team of crack code breakers took a look at the impossible puzzle again. They knew it meant something, but finding the key was no easy task. It would end up taking them 14 years to finally decipher the code. That's dedication. The team included an American software developer named David Aranchak, a computer programmer from Belgium named Jarl van Eyck, and an Australian mathematician named Sam Blake. Their hard work finally brought the words of the Zodiac to the public. Eyck had actually developed software to break the codes, and he had created it specifically to crack the one made by the Zodiac. Blake's role in figuring out the cipher was to manipulate the symbols and see how they could be transposed, and Aranchak did the rest. The team said at times they'd get somewhere with the puzzle and they'd find a word, but then they discovered that what they discovered was a false positive, what they called a phantom. Then one day Aranchak announced, "This is a big one. We have a solution for the 340 and it's real." It hadn't been easy. The team had looked at hundreds of thousands of different manipulations of the text. Then on a Thursday morning at the beginning of December 2020, a variation of the text showed up in the program. Aranchak said at first sight it looked like gibberish, but it also contained the words gas chamber and the even more Zodiac-esque phrase, "Hope you're trying to catch me." That was a signature Zodiac taunt. If those phrases were actually part of the correct solution to the puzzle, what the team would have to do is apply a cipher that had been used for those words to the rest of the symbols in the cryptogram. It was complicated. They realized they had to look at the puzzle and read it in a diagonal fashion, so they took the symbol in the top left-hand corner and wrote it down. So if it was an H, they'd write H. Then they'd move down one and over to the right 2 spaces, then they'd write down that symbol, which here's a plus sign. Then they went through the entire puzzle doing this until they'd written down every symbol. What they ended up with was a completely different looking puzzle. It still looked like nonsense, of course, but now they had something new that they could put into the code-breaking software. The team was rather disappointed after that. Not only did not much of anything come up, but the terms gas chamber and hope you're trying to catch me weren't there either. It was as if they'd gone backward. But then Aranchak tried something else. He added the words they suspected were correct, gas chamber and hope you're trying to catch me, to the software as known solutions and let the program run. Presto, an English message popped up, the words of the Grandmaster Secret Code Psycho, the Zodiac himself. That wasn't me on the TV show. Was this the Zodiac telling the cops that the guy that had called in to talk to the lawyer was an imposter? Aranchak almost fell out of his chair. After 51 years, it was as if the Zodiac had risen from the grave. The team could now decrypt the first part of the puzzle, but the same method of code breaking didn't work for the other 2 parts. Since the first part was almost definitely correct, it didn't make sense that the other sections couldn't be solved in the same way. But then they hypothesized that the reason it didn't work was because the Zodiac had actually made a mistake when he designed the cipher. If that was the case, it was no wonder no one could
Did he make a mistake?
crack it. You can't open a broken lock with a good key. The team took into consideration that he'd made some spelling mistakes. They corrected the mistakes and then used a slightly different system of moving down and to the right diagonally reading the symbols, and they discovered something amazing. It worked. The Zodiac really had made a mistake in his code. And here it is, the fully decrypted words of the Zodiac himself from a code that remained unbroken for over 50 years. He wrote, "I hope you're having lots of fun in trying to catch me." That wasn't me on the TV show, which brings up a point about me. I'm not afraid of the gas chamber because it will send me to paradise all the sooner, because I now have enough slaves to work for me, where everyone else has nothing when they reach paradise. So they're afraid of death. I'm not afraid, because I know that my new life will be an easy one in paradise death. It was true. The man who called and spoke to Melvin Belly really was an imposter. The Zodiac had always been somewhat narcissistic in his writing. He'd always bragged about being one step ahead of the cops. He never seemed scared or repentant, like how the caller sounded. The Zodiac, perhaps suffering from a mental illness, actually believed his victims could be waiting on him hand and foot in the afterlife. It appears he didn't believe the heaven-hell dichotomy for good guys and bad guys. The team didn't waste any time in contacting the FBI to alert them that they'd cracked the puzzle. The FBI subsequently issued a statement saying,
"Can a man really have mental illness when he gave y'all a 340-word code that it took 51 years to crack?" Right.
It was true, and while it's exciting and a huge accomplishment to finally have cracked the code, it didn't actually get us any closer to understanding the true identity of America's most confounding serial killer. The message doesn't really help the investigation at all, which the FBI says is still ongoing. We continue to seek justice for the victims of these brutal crimes, wrote the agency. But that's not the end of the Zodiac story when it comes to codes. There are 2 more ciphers that were sent by the Zodiac that haven't yet been solved. They are both very short, and some people believe one of them could even be his name. Being short doesn't make a cipher easier, though, far from it. Because it's short, there are fewer
Why would he
clues
give you
for
his
a key.
name?
The 340 cipher team has tried to crack those remaining puzzles, but suspects that because it's so short, unless new information is discovered, it's likely a hopeless task. And so while the code is cracked, the identity of the Zodiac killer remains a mystery. People will continue trying, though, and who knows, maybe one day someone will finally solve the last of the masked maniac's mysteries and will finally learn the truth of just who the Zodiac killer is. Now you need to watch Why the Zodiac Killer Was Never Found. Or for more true crime, check out Did OJ Commit Those Murders?
Wow, they say he made a mistake in his cipher. Come on now. This man has been a step ahead, more like 5 steps ahead, the police and everybody else in the world for 51 years. And you think he made a mistake in his own cipher? Or just maybe he's doing something different to give y'all something to work towards to catch him? That's crazy. That's crazy. Anyway, that's my reaction for out. Wow.